We meet the first Tuesday of every month, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first instructional affairs item we have is 2.01 MOA, Vita Education Services. And I'd like Mr. Cohen, our Special Services Director, to discuss the item.
Sure, thank you. So this agenda item is a memo of agreement for the 21-22 school year between the Bensalem School District and the Vita Education Services. They provide adult education for families in Bensalem Township. In the agreement, it lists basically that Bensalem School District will provide space for them to provide their programming in the evening. Really, the important piece, if you look, is number one, where it says they're requesting the district to waive its facility fees for Vita to use the space, and I believe we've always done that for quite a few years. They use classroom space, they need some storage areas within the rooms, and they use the computer labs to have access to the internet in the buildings and whatnot. Number 5, there is another section for use of a photocopy machine, but I believe then it turns around and gets billed back to Vita for any copies they may make in the evening.
The only thing when it comes to the facilities and waiver of fees, that's going to have to go through business, that part. And if you, just to avoid any discussion on the floor that takes up, if we have anything on what they were charged before, just so there's comparison and everybody knows.
Okay, yep, I can look at that. I don't believe they were. I believe it's always been, it's just I have to go back and look.
All right, so just to clarify, so for this item, we want to move it to this month's business affairs and then from there to the action meeting?
Well, for instructional, it can go on for us, but business needs to be aware of the request for the waiver.
Okay.
Just,
All right, Mr. Cohen, you will take care of that.
Yep, I'll get it to Mr. Steffi tomorrow and point out number 1 to him and have him place it on his. Yep.
Okay, following along on board docs for those of you at home, the second item, 2.02, extended school year contracts, Valley Day School. And I'll have Mr. Cohen, Director of Special Services, explain this agenda item.
Sure. So they are 4 agreements for extended school year services for this summer for students that attend the Valley Day School.
Okay, I'll give the board members a moment to look at those.
I just want to point out that this is not a special program through Valley Elementary. This is a totally separate school. Just with all the summer programs we have going on, I've only ever had 2 people ask, so I just
Absolutely.
make sure everybody's got that.
Yeah, Valley Day is an approved private school outside of the district, correct.
Okay, the third item, 2.03, emergency instructional time template. And so I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the attachment. This is something we applied for last year during the global pandemic. And I'll just read the first paragraph, and it should give you some background. As communicated to chief school administrators on July 6, 2020, Section 520.1 of the school code provides flexibility to meet minimum instructional time requirements in the event of an emergency that prevents a school entity from providing for the attendance of all pupils or usual hours of classes at the school entity. As occurred for the 2021 school year, the Pennsylvania Department of Education considers the World Health Organization declared coronavirus disease, COVID-19, a global pandemic and an emergency as contemplated by Section 520.1 for the 2021-22 school year. So basically, in summary, they've extended this instructional time again for next school year in the event only if we need it. I mean, it is our hope that this is not needed at all. So what you do is you provide a copy of your school calendar, and you also have to provide, if you look at the second attachment under this agenda item, we've listed what our hybrid and remote learning hours would look like for elementary and for secondary in a hybrid. Again, for the public, this is something we hope we don't have to use, but it is something that the state asks you to apply for should you think you need it. So nothing would change in terms of, God forbid, a catastrophic event or another global pandemic. We would follow the same type of scenario in making sure that we have the 900 annual hours for elementary and the 990 annual hours for secondary.
I just had a question on this, on the attachment. So there's elementary K to 6 and there's secondary 7 to 12. On, under elementary, it does not have live or synchronous learning experience. It's only under secondary. Was that just an omission or is that purposeful?
I don't think it's an omission. This is the same thing we handed in last year. Any of my colleagues know if it's synchronous or asynchronous?
It's on the table. It has total time synchronous and asynchronous for each grade.
Which attachments? I must be looking at a different one.
So it should be the second attachment, the one that has elementary K to 6 hybrid.
Thank you, Doug. I'm looking at the description. Oh, because the table only goes with. And why would we have, given that we, as I reports say, did so well with synchronous, why do we have asynchronous here as an option? Because these are alternatives, right? Like for kindergarten, first,
These are just
second.
alternatives.
Right.
Well, for kindergarten, the 90 minutes for reading, it's 30 synchronous, 60 asynchronous. You don't want a kid in front of a kindergartner in front of a computer, I can't talk, for 90 minutes.
Oh, no, I agree. But these look like these are alternative concepts. Because you've added up, right? Does total time have to be 420? 5 hours a day, that's only 300. Why is it 420? Is it not really, because 900 annual hours, 180 days of school is 5 hours of daily instructional hours, but it's just a math question. 5 times 60 is 300, not 420. What?
The 5 hours is instructional time. It adds in time for lunch, recess, things like that. That gets it up to the 420.
That's why. Okay. I
Again,
just don't want any community members looking at this and thinking we're proposing that, again, as you say, heaven forbid something should happen, that we're going back to an asynchronous concept.
I hope we absolutely do not have to use this. This is just.
No, even if we do have to use it, if it's an asynchronous model, the community would be concerned, I would think. But this is just, because what this is doing is, well, so 230 minutes of synchronous is 4 hours a day, basically. Okay. Just as long as it's clear that we're not proposing another asynchronous model like we did, September, October, November.
So 2.01, we're moving to action. 2.02, we're taking to business affairs, but we're still moving it to action under instructional affairs. I'm sorry, 2.01, we're moving to action, and business affairs. 2.02 is moving to action. 2.03 is moving to action.
Correct.
Okay, just want to be sure because Carolyn has taken notes, so I want to make sure. So I want to be very clear about the next discussion item. As I said in the beginning, this is Instructional Affairs Subcommittee, and what we do here is continue our ongoing work between members here of the Instructional Cabinet, and members of the Instructional Affairs School Board. We have had many, many meetings this year about Chromebooks. We meet every week in Instructional Cabinet, and we continue to discuss these things. We have had some instances recently where things did go back and forth from Instructional Affairs to Business Affairs, because I guess the purchase of Chromebooks. Hopefully, when the new director comes, we may go back to what we used to do. That person used to come to Instructional Affairs because what we do impacts their world and vice versa. So what we have in front of us today is a discussion item to get a feel from the board, because a determination must be made as to what direction we are going to move. So I want to set the stage and clarify something that I clarified at last month's Instructional Affairs Board meeting and the month before. We do currently have a 7 through 12 one-to-one initiative. And what that means is every 7th through 12th grader is giving a Chromebook device. We also have a learning management platform called Schoology that supports that learning management device. Teachers must avail themselves to the learning management platform. I think it's fair to say that what we have in K-6, having visited the Program and Services meeting this past Thursday, every district in Bucks County has a K-6 device. In asking some of them, they're going to continue with what they call a K-12 initiative, but this district has a K-6 one-to-one device. We've used Google as a platform because of COVID and the emergency preparedness we needed to provide instruction at home to our K-6 students. When COVID first happened and the world literally had to shut down, K-4 Chromebooks were deployed in a manner that is not consistent with what we would have liked to have in terms of best practices. The IT department had to dismantle Chromebooks that were in elementary buildings. They dismantled as many as they could, and Kate's going to further expound on this, but I think it was up to like 38 Chromebook carts had to be deconstructed and moved out to students. We were told by upper administration that this was a must and that these needed to go out ASAP. We then began to order Chromebooks for, I believe it was 5th and 6th grade, realizing that we didn't have a K-6 one-to-one initiative. We had plenty of Chromebooks. We had what I like to call a fleet of Chromebooks. It would be nice to have a grade level of Chromebooks in a perfect world, but what we have is a fleet of Chromebooks. 5th and 6th had the great fortune of getting brand new Chromebooks. It wasn't that way with the current 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. They have one of our older fleets, which you will see in a presentation, not to be for action, but just to explain. So where we find ourselves at the end of this school year is examining what does Bensalem School District want to do. Do we want to be a K-12 one-to-one initiative district? Do we want to go K-6 and expand on that initiative? Do we want to just go to 6th grade and move down and see how each year goes? Do we want to do something with the advent of a new supervisor of instructional technology who we brought into these conversations? Do we want to have some kind of committee to explore the benefits and screen time that are recommended for students K-6? So there are lots of things we have to answer. More importantly, over the last couple of weeks, in conjunction with the IT department, we've been looking at our fleet of Chromebooks. I will go down in history as calling it a fleet. They actually have accepted the word. And the reason I say that is because I feel like a used car salesman. It would be great to say all 12th grade has this, all 11th grade has this, all 10th grade. So we found out it's not so. So we know we have some transiency in the district, and so conceivably you could come in and get a brand-new book and be in fourth grade, or you could have gotten one of those in our used car lot or our fleet. So Mrs. Ferrandez has strongly encouraged us to take a look at this, and that's what we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. So I'd like Kate to give you, hopefully we captured what the IT department thinks is a way to move forward and what we think may be a way to move forward. I just want to tell everybody at home, nothing's changing as of this moment because there is some information on our website about keeping Chromebooks or not keeping Chromebooks. So, Kate, I'm going to have you go over some of the history of what we have in the fleet, and then I'm going to ask my Instructional Affairs School Board colleagues for some input on what they think would be best for how we move forward as a district.
Kate, before you start, I see you've got some stuff. Is there something on board docs I just can't see?
No, this is for us to, we are going to share it, but it was more or less to keep us, because we want to make sure we captured what IT said to us exactly. But we can share it, and if you would like, it's up to you and Mrs. Nicholas. We can put it on board docs. I didn't put it on there because it's not necessarily something we're sending to action. We're
Not
kind
ready
of,
for the public, I get that. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if I
Yes.
should log on in to be following along. If we could see it up there, that'd be great.
or if you want to email it to Instructional Affairs Board members.
I'm okay if it's
Can
up
you see
there.
it?
That's fine.
Okay.
Heather, can you? While she's getting that, I think there were actually, during COVID, I went back and Mr. Incolingo and Mr. Steffi were kind enough to provide. We didn't just buy fifth and sixth new, we bought 3,300 new ones. K to 1 also, those were the ones that were stuck
So we'll tell you,
somewhere.
there's some disparity between what we have in our sheets and what they have, and some overlap in terms of, and you'll see this in the presentation, we also purchased some Chromebooks with title money.
Oh, I don't know where it came from, I'm just
EL
saying.
students.
Yeah, yeah.
So conceivably, they might be counting things differently than we are, but I know Mr. Steffi's the expert with numbers, but it does not match up exactly the way ours does.
Okay, so on this first slide, we went over with the tech department just the age of our devices because we thought it was important to understand where our devices land and how old they are. So this is a listing in devices from newest to oldest. So currently our current 5th and 6th graders hold the newest devices, which are the HP G8s. And then our 12th graders have HP G7s, which, Josh, nod your head really hard if I get anything wrong here. HP G7s were bought last March, not this March, but the March before that. Okay. And then the 7th and 8th graders have Lenovo's, which are the next oldest. The 9th through 11th grade have the Dell 3180s. And then K to 4 has mixed devices from different carts, maybe some new because they had to be filled in here or there or when they got them. But for the most part, K to 4 has mixed devices from the carts across the district.
Forgive me, K and 1 had those ones that were stuck in Toronto or something. They have what happened to those?
Those that were stuck, Mrs. Ferrandez, were 5th and 6th. I do want to point out the 9th through 11th, the Dell 3180s, and I hate this term, but they are considered end-of-life devices. I hate the term, meaning that they should be retired from the fleet, sent to Municipid, see if we can get some money for the district. What I've been told is if Municipid doesn't sell them, they would come back to the district. We have a choice of then selling them ourselves and/or disposing them, but everything is inventoried from beginning to end. But the 9th, 10th, and 11th, current 9th, 10th, and 11th, do have the Dell series, which are considered end-of-life devices.
So Mr. Incolingo changed his mind about that, because he said it was 10th and 11th, not 9th. So because 9th are a 1 year less.
Right,
than 10th.
believe me,
So now he's saying 9th as well?
we all are saying. I think what was happening were, if I may, just siloed conversations. And so what we did was, it was the IT department and us and the business affairs department trying to get to, this is like where we are currently. Now, Mr. Incolingo has said this, and this is the part that is true, but I have, so these devices, these terrible end-of-life devices, as we call them, you can still go on the internet with them, and they would still support testing. Technically, they won't support everything, but it's hard for Mr. Incolingo to give up the fact that they're end of life, because there's still some life in them. We talked about, so would these be ones we put in a loaner cart, or not? Just want everybody to know, we vetted it out. Like, in our humble opinion, if these are the end-of-life devices, they should get out of here and go on municipal bid so that the district can try to recoup some funds out of them. That's what we're thinking.
No, I 100% agree. 10th and 11th, some of them are being held together by duct tape and keys don't work. But I was just surprised about 9th grade, because they've been in use one less year of service. I was just curious.
Do you want to go to the next slide, Josh?
But they wouldn't really have been necessarily 1 year, because they're all the same model.
They are the same model.
So
It's
they were
when
probably bought at the same time.
They
They were
may have-
just in carts at the time.
No. Remember when they started in 7th grade? So 10th and 11th, our kids were 7th graders, and then 11th graders were 8th graders at the time. They got them at the same time. Then the current 9th graders were 6th graders at the time, so they didn't get them until a year later when they went to 7th grade. So I don't know when we purchased them. Well, actually, I do. I have that chart somewhere. But they didn't go into service. They were those 6th graders who moved to 7th grade, who are current 9th graders, they were handed brand new ones. But they may be that model, but they were handed new ones. So they've been in service 9th, 8th, and 7th. I'm real sure about this, because at one of the business affairs meetings, we went through this. So the 9th graders, they've been 9th, 8th, and 7th grade, they've been in service. The 10th graders have been in service 10th, 9th, 8th, and 7th. And the 11th graders have been in service 11th, 10th, 9th, and 8th. So if you're a current 10th grader or a current 11th grader, you have used them from middle school to high school for a total of 4 years. If you're a current 9th grader, you've used them for a total of 3 years so far, just because you're only in 9th grade.
And my understanding is that with that model, there's issues. So what they're gonna do is they're going to take all of them back, 9, 10, 11, refurbish what they can for those daily loaner carts for like kids who forget their laptop or they need one rental for a day or two. So they're going to refurbish what they can to make up that loaner fleet at the secondary level.
That makes sense. It just means now, so we're talking about 1,500 instead of 1,000. So, I mean, I don't disagree with the plan.
And keep in mind,
But it's an extra
could-
500.
you're right. So I do think, Mrs. Fernandez, that one way or another, just like you had mentioned, we are going to have to buy something in either one of these suggestions that we have. We're okay with both of these either way. But right now, what I want the public to know, this is just a scenario right now.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm just talking through it, and I appreciate the organization.
Okay, and then this chart is we took a look at our fleet, as Mrs. Leon has been calling it, and it's actually a technical term because that's what GoGuardian calls it, their fleet inventory. So you're new, so you're fresh. So this is a chart if we are sticking with the 7 to 12 initiative and staying in that direction. What would happen is K to 4, the devices would be collected at some point, and they will be either retired if they're end of life devices, or if they are newer devices because they are scattered amongst the K to 4, they would then be used in carts or in the loaner program. I got that right, Josh, right? Okay, perfect. And then in 5th grade, those devices would be collected and redeployed to the current 9th graders to get them through the rest of high school. And then remember, 5th and 6th grade have the newest devices. And then 6th grade would keep their device moving into 7th grade because they would have gotten a new device for the initiative anyway. The current 8th graders, their devices will be collected at some point and then redistributed to the current 11th graders the current 8th graders will have their devices collected back from them. They will be given to the 11th graders to get them through their senior year. And then the 8th graders will receive a new device that will carry them through high school.
I can see how that might make sense. The look on my face is, that is a lot of collection and reconfiguration to happen by August. Last I heard, Dr. Lee said this actually, that you would take the ones that are coming back from the seniors and hand those to the current 10th or 11th graders. Plus, he's said the ones that we already purchased for kindergartners would go towards the 10th and 11th graders. But I can't imagine taking them from the 8th graders. Those have only been in service for 2 years. No, I'm talking about the 8th graders. I can't, that's a lot to take back and try to redistribute by
is.
August. Even if we're just talking
Yes.
about 10th, 11th,
Yeah.
and 8th, that's a lot.
We may have an ask about 2 additional student workers. We have, I think, 8. So we may have an ask of the board if we can get 2 more.
But why would we take back?
It all has to do with getting it back into the hands of how the students would have it the longest.
And then in keeping up with the loaner cart. So we're trying to keep the devices in service as long as possible and kids with the devices as they need them. So the way this works out through the end is that the reason we're giving the new 8th graders going into 9th grade new devices is then that will last them all the way through high school. And that's why they made the decision to give the newest, buy new devices and give them to 8th grade and then shift their devices because if you look down the oldest list, they're older than the 5th and 6th grade devices. They're 7th and 8th grade are the next oldest. So giving them to the 11th graders to get them through. The 10th or the 12th grade has the ones from last March. So that would shift up to the current 10th graders and get them through the last 2 years. Yep. And then, so I'll go back up in 8th grade. So as we said, those 8th grade devices would get shifted to our current 11th graders, and that would get them through their senior year. Then 9th grade, the devices would be collected at some point, and they will receive the G8s currently deployed to the 5th graders, because that would get them through high school. And then our 10th grade, our current 10th graders, their devices would be collected at some point, and they will receive the G7s currently deployed to the 12th graders. And then, like I said, the 11th graders will get those 8th grade, and the 12th grade will have theirs collected.
So basically, this summer, there will be a lot of shuffling because going forward, everybody will have what they need to have, because last summer it was, we need to get everybody something. Yes. And whether, even if they keep them now, everything's going to have to get shuffled every year if we don't straighten it out this one summer. And thank you for sitting and figuring everybody who had to play dominoes with that.
So I know you guys obviously are not, the instructional cabinet certainly doesn't get involved with what brands were purchased and, any of that, obviously. But I had a list.
Oh, we are now.
Well, all right. Your fleet, I didn't see. All I know is that this board, between March of 2020 and August of 2020, we approved, as I understand, were purchased over 3,000. So where are they? This reflects so much. Well, there's 2 things that this chart reflects, and this will be a question for business. One, at the last business meeting, they said 4 years was the lifespan of a device. So this is reflecting a 3-year lifespan. So that's one question I'm going to have.
4. 4 is what we're aiming for.
Going forward, right? So if you give
Yes.
the 8th graders brand new ones as they go to high school,
Yes.
you're assuming 4 years,
We're assuming.
Right, and, you know, some of them may, or most of them probably will, some may not, right? Depends on treatment, you know, who,
Sure.
right, but some of this up here is at 3 years, which, okay. But where are the 3,300 brand-new ones that were purchased? And you may not be able to answer
Right.
this
What
question,
sheet, just
but they're
let me
not
ask you,
reflected
what sheet
here.
are you going off of? Just, I'll pull it up for me so I get it. Are you talking about the one Mr. Steffi gave us?
There was one that Mr. Steffi gave you, and then I also went back and I looked at what this board approved for
Yes.
purchase, and he confirmed with me that they were purchased.
Right.
So I have a list of that. So there were, and I didn't, the HPC 7s were 1,200 on March 25th. There were also 1,600 Lenovo's, which had to be approved and rescinded. That was August 26th. And then there's another 500 HPs that also happened. Now, that's not including the ones for kindergarten.
But
There are 3,300. So where are they?
That's about half of the fleet. I'll just keep calling it the fleet.
Yeah.
So you figure K to 6 didn't necessarily have their own. There were some that had to go. That's K to 6 is half
Oh, they
of
didn't
the
have them, right?
students.
So that's 1,000, exactly.
K to 6?
No, excuse me. I'm looking
More
at
than
this chart,
1,000
5 to
kids,
6,
K to
forgive me.
6.
No, 5 to 6. I'm looking at this chart. 5 to 6, this presentation said have them. That's 1,000.
But your question was, where did the 3,000, whatever, that's half of the computers. K to 6 didn't have their own.
Right, so that's
And
1,000.
we had to,
Right. Okay, there's 1,000, 5 to 6. This chart says K to 4 got only old ones.
No, it
Forgive me,
mixed-
Heather.
mixed
I'm
No, no,
devices.
mishmash, we call it.
Mixed devices.
Mixed.
So they did get some new ones, and I don't know if the numbers that Mr. Steffi gave you, so I can't say this definitively, but rationalizing it out, it could be the numbers that were purchased for EL students. It could be the numbers that were
Not that
purchased
many.
for the non-pubs. It could be, we had to buy a lot of devices at that point, and we had, so 5th, 6th, and 12th grade were all new during COVID.
Right, and that's
And 7th.
1,500.
And 7th were all new during COVID. And then we had to purchase other devices for different populations.
So, Josh, say that again. Fifth, sixth, seventh, and 12th. So 4 full grade levels had to be the new
It
ones.
wouldn't have been 7th. I have been over this so many times with Mr. Incolingo and Mr. Steffi. I know it must be infuriating. I mean, annoying for you guys, not infuriating, annoying.
But I will
But-
tell you, in meetings that I've been privy to, you ever, like, how do I say this? There's 2 different terminologies going on. All the Chromebooks, you're right, we did purchase 3,300. We're not disputing that, but they're in the hands of kids.
No, I know they are. I'm just saying, but this goes towards how many we may or may not have to purchase, right? Go immediately to as we move into this launch.
Well, I think it's going to depend, like, throughout our conversations, because there's several scenarios we could go with.
My frustration's not with this group.
I understand. I mean, I'm in receipt, I'm trying to find it, but I can't find it on the top of my email. But I too discussed this with Mr. Steffi, and we had Mr. Incolingo, Mr. Haskin, Mr. Allen, and there was not agreement in terms of language. So I equated to this, and I'm sorry to make it this simplistic, but we have 2 reading programs that we had one time. One was an intervention, and one was our regular reading program. And we had a specialist come who told us they don't speak the same language. Well, in the way and I'm not dumbing it down, but I'm telling you they're not all speaking the same language. The 3,300 Chromebooks were deployed where they needed to go, and we've been backtracking with IT to find out exactly where they are. And to our knowledge, this is the accurate picture. If we choose not to do a K to 6 device one-to-one or initiative one-to-one, then you're right, we're not going to need to purchase anymore. It all depends on the way the district wants to move forward.
Kate, this plan that you're presenting, this was IT's proposal of how to move forward, like in terms of moving devices.
It was the combination of about 10 people in my office. IT, the whole IT department, and us. And when I tell you they said this is going to be a huge collection, it is, but either we do it now or every year we will have issues.
The issues come in and the chargers are different for the different devices.
Well, that was another thing I learned, that every single one of these brands has a totally different charger. Chargers break down. We learned more than we ever needed to know.
Okay, so we talked about just some of the additional details, that the devices collected from grades K to 4, like I said, will be retired as they are end of life, or any device that has been distributed in grades K to 4 that is not end of life will be refurbished and used as either loaner devices, or if they're on the newer end, may fill holes in the different parts of the fleet that they fit, or be put into carts in the elementary schools. The devices collected from grades 9 to 11 will be refurbished, what can be, and used as daily loaners at the 7 to 12 level. So that's when kids come to school with their computer not charged, their computer breaks, and they need to borrow one for the day. Elementary schools will receive 3 carts per school, per tech, at about 630 devices. These will be newly purchased devices if we go this plan of sticking 7 to 12 with the 1-to-1 and K to 6 not being part of the 1-to-1 initiative. And then the current 8th graders will receive newly purchased devices for lifespan purposes.
Just so everyone knows, before COVID, K to 6 school buildings had Chromebook carts. So that's what they used to wheel into rooms whenever they wanted to enhance a lesson with a Chromebook cart. So we would,
I believe it's 32, right? I think it depends on the device in the cart, but it's usually between like 30. I think the most I've ever seen in a cart is, 33, because I had 33 in my classroom. 35 at the top of it. 35 per cart. Plus a couple. Well, for the younger grades, so K to 2 has a max class size of 25. First through third has a max class size of 29, and 4 and 5 have a class of 32, and then 6th grade's 33. So there'll be extras. Doesn't charge, keys, drop off.
I thought we had, from one of our other business affairs meetings, I thought there were currently carts in schools, because is that right, Josh? There are currently carts in schools, but we want to purchase 630 for that as well under this plan?
so hold your ears, because don't shoot the messenger. But the kindergarten purchase was deployed in the carts. There was a miscommunication. So they didn't go yet to kinder. The new one, the brand new
Well,
ones.
right, because the new kindergartners aren't here
Right.
yet.
So they're still in carts. And we,
Dr. Lee said they were going to the 10th. Was Dr. Lee in? I mean, literally, he said this last Friday.
with all due respect to Dr. Lee, I don't know.
He wasn't in on
He
this
wasn't
meeting.
in any of, well, he wouldn't be either.
Excuse
We
me, not
meet-
Friday. That would have been Wednesday or Thursday. So, okay.
We've met all week. We didn't invite him though, but while we sorted all this out. So I just want to make I want to make sure I'm looking at the same spreadsheet you have. I'm looking, on April 15th, I was provided by Business Affairs, Mr. Steffi, our Chromebook fleet. Is that the one that you have?
I got 2 or 3. And of course, unfortunately, my email, once anything's more than 3 weeks old, it just disappears. So I don't even have it at this point. But I was given 2 different, I don't know if it should, maybe I'm not as special as you, Mrs. Nicholas. But I'm sure that I'm not as special as
that.
you. Yes, well. Yeah, I have a month at most, and things disappear from my inbox. I was given 2 different spreadsheets. Mr. Incolingo first gave me one, and then Mr. Steffi gave me another one, because Mr. Steffi was accounting. He confirmed that we bought, in the space of that 5 months, 3,300.
Is correct.
And then the 600 was on top of that, I think. Yes. So I've had a couple of different spreadsheets, which I just looked, that's what I was looking at. I no longer have.
So we
So I
found.
would, if I could see that, I'd
Yeah,
love
I'm
to.
going to forward this to you.
Thank
So we
you.
found out other things like we have some end-of-life devices in our current inventory, not, that should already have gone out for municipal, that never, they're in the graveyard downstairs, as we call it. I want to paraphrase what Mr. Steffi said. These might not garner a lot of money on municipal. And so then but that's the proper way to do it. So everything that's in the graveyard, we should dig up, so to speak.
It's getting morbid.
Get it,
Mrs. Lynn.
get it on municipal. And the board can then, he said, if it's okay with the board, whatever doesn't get sold, we can sell to a student for like $5. Like Mr. Incolingo said, they do go on internet, the ones that could, and they do support some things. Well, for some, that might be better than nothing to have, like if we had to sell them. Well, maybe, I don't know. I figured if municipal doesn't give us any money, right? One of the spreadsheets Mr. Incolingo had, the reason there were some concern that I had with it is he was counting every single Chromebook ever in the district. So there was one that actually had about 3,000 more Chromebooks. And at first, everybody had a heart attack until we realized he was talking about graveyard ones or end-of-life ones. So that's why I said there was a lot. The reason we joined forces the way we did was to make sure we were all on the same language, so to speak.
Yeah. And the reason I dug into this, because as a board member, it's our responsibility. We know we approved and were purchased 3,300 new ones that's which we needed to, right, in that space. And so that's the reason I'm trying to account for them from a
But I
fiscal
think,
perspective.
and what we're looking for is that all of the new ones and the newer ones are in the hands of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, because those are the grades that are our true initiative. That's our goal, that they have the newest ones. We're not opposed to the Chromebook carts. If the IT department tells us some of them are 2nd year or 3rd year, we're not opposed to them on the loaner carts at all. You are correct. If we stay K to 12, this is a recurring purchase. We mapped out, after our peak in my room, we mapped out a whole cycle of what it would look over the years. And you are correct, it is a recurring cost. It's something that we have to explore as a district. I think one thing we came to in instructional affairs, and if anybody wants to jump in, we came to consensus that the incoming kindergarten students, we would prefer they not have a device at this time, their own. In our opinion, don't get me in trouble, that's our instructional cabinet opinion. They will have carts in their buildings. The teachers will teach them how to use them. The computer teacher will teach them how to use them. They will use them at times to enhance lessons. But we're looking for a year-long study of what's the appropriate time to use them, what's the best way to use them as resources. So we're not picturing a student with a Chromebook going home each evening. That's our recommendation of an instructional cabinet.
I mean, I'm fine with the recommendation. I think at 1 or 2 instructional affairs committee meetings ago, that was not the recommendation. It was different. So after further discussion, this is the current recommendation?
You have, here's what I'm learning. Everyone at this table, everyone probably in the whole community has a different opinion. So we're looking for some guidance It's our recommendation that that not occur at this time.
Would occur maybe a year from now after you've had time to look at it?
Yeah, we're thinking that with the advent of some changes in the district, with the new director coming on board, with Mr. Allen coming on board as our supervisor, Josh has added a tremendous amount, Mr. Hood, Brandon Spencer. We had the whole group of them in our office. Like, we're thinking about even first grade with the loss of instruction. You know, what kind of deficits do they have coming in? We had conversations with Mr. Allen, who cringes at the fact that we won't give the kids a device. I didn't say we won't. These are philosophies that people have and share. But if we're really looking at K1, 2, and 3, we're concerned about the learning loss. We're concerned that, do they need a device every day? Not so sure. We'd like more time to study it. We'd like more time to research it. There's also questions like this. So these K-4 mishmash of devices, if they are old, do we give them to the kids just to keep? There's so many scenarios. One thing I think we came to consensus with, we would like to have 6th grade. We see ourselves somewhere in the future saying 6th grade join in this initiative, and 5th grade. In years, like the track we were moving on, and not do it just because COVID made us do it, and not do it because people around us are doing it. Just looking at our population and the needs of our students and the possible learning loss. Again, we are not saying that this technology is not great, but we're thinking that maybe carts might be better suited in some of the lower grades. And some further research, Mr. Allen has agreed to help us out with doing some parent feedback, teacher feedback, principal feedback as to what would be appropriate screen time, what should they use the device for in the classroom, should at times it be borrowed for homework, you know, that kind of thing, but not like the 7th through 12th grade initiative supported by learning management.
Do we have any sense on these K-4s? Josh, so the K-4s definitely only have older ones, except maybe a new one here and there, a new child or something?
It's a total mix.
Not counting
Yes, okay.
Most students got brand new devices.
Okay.
But other than that, it's not even any one device, it's a mixture of 3 to 4 different models. It was truly whatever we grabbed out of Chromebook carts. And a lot of them are older than what the current 10th and 11th graders have because they were sitting in carts.
Well,
And Kate and Doug and everyone, questions came up that even with this K-6, let's just suppose we don't do a full initiative yet. We still want those carts to be good carts. We still recognize Doug's our assessment coordinator. PSSA ran pretty smoothly because every kid had a device and it was awesome. What once took us weeks to roll out PSSA took no time at all because this year every kid had a device. So there's just so many pros and cons that we want to make sure the board is fully aware of all of them and us as well.
if they really are K-4s, as you just mentioned, if these and this is, again, not, no one at this table, this is just contrary to what I was told as things went along the way, because I've tried to really stay on top of this throughout since COVID, this technology piece. But if they're really that old, I can't imagine whatever we would get on municipal would warrant the person power to look at them, figure out what's what. It almost would make sense if it is indeed K-4 is that old, to just leave them with them. It's a cost-benefit analysis. It probably doesn't make sense.
And I think Dr. Lee would concur, because we had conversations like they already have it. These are kids who might not otherwise have something. We'd still provide the Chromebook cart in school with the good ones. I totally agree with what you're saying, though, that if, in fact, these are... One of the things that made this very difficult, and I'm going to be really transparent, you had to be over Schaefer the day the world closed. I happened to be over there one day, and parents were coming up And I remember Brandon Spencer saying the lines were so long, and we were aware that the governor was coming out with a press release that schools were going to be closed. So, you just got a device in their hands was what we were told. So, but to the best we can see, this is a mishmash of devices that are old. But I would agree with you that I'd like the kids to keep it, not necessarily in school, but at home.
No. And how does this mesh with, I forget what meeting, but the board passed our application, help me someone, that if we want to use remote learning during snow days, what is that called?
Flexible instruction.
Thank you.
We wrote in
So-
there for contingency for both. So we wrote into our plan whether the kids had a device and internet, or if there was there was deviceless. as
Okay, I remember, thank you for that. I remember that now, so this wouldn't have any effect.
And
on
I
that.
think, would it be fair to say that that could happen for the 520.1 plan as well? However, we can prepare, we can have a combination of both for that as well.
Well, I don't.
Not
let's
looking,
I'm not going to jinx this. We're not even going to talk about that. I can't even.
we still have to run a lot by Dr. Lee. It's just that we just keep meeting to try to solve this mystery while we're all together and see what's the best approach moving forward.
So
You
this
could
is,
tell us do a K-12 initiative and we'll just move on.
so this is the current proposal by instructional cabinet, and I know that's all changing too, but how many total purchases then? There's 630 here. How many total?
So
I
what-
don't have the other slide in
What
front
we
of me.
what we were planned on doing was, if this was palatable and you said, okay, let's take K-6 and let's examine it and let's have our parents' input, our teachers' input, and all of that. And we need to buy the Chromebook carts, though. What?
You just said the kindergartner ones went into the Chromebook.
Yeah, but they're
cards.
going to come back out and be redeployed to. Our priority is 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th have the best of the fleet. So if that means moving out,
But new ones would be the best of the fleet.
sure.
Well,
So why would you, these are already configured for carts, why would you reconfigure the, because this got explained to me, like, you have to put the kid's ID number, you do all this stuff. If they're already sitting in carts and they're from February, just leave them in carts.
Right.
Why would you?
I think the plan is, because that would only be about the devices we're talking about, like another 630 is what would get us 3 carts in each elementary school. And if you already have about 3 carts in each elementary school, then you'd have at least a cart almost per grade. Because if you only had just 3 carts in a building, that gets really
So
tight.
you're talking a total of 6 carts per building. I misunderstood.
If we have current carts that are made up of new computers, that's what I'm assuming is the thinking for just adding 3 more carts to each elementary building, because 3 carts wouldn't again get that far. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you're talking, this is new ones. So the details are really, elementary schools will have 6 carts per school.
That's what we
If
would
the
like.
board approves an additional 3. I see.
Yes.
And then we need the grade level purchase for 8th grade, the current 8th grade students going into 9th grade, right? We don't have those devices. So the current 8th graders would need, they explained to me they would need new devices. Under this scenario, yes.
So what we were thinking is, if this sounds palatable, the next thing we were going to do is get some quotes, what exactly the cost would be.
No, I can send it if you want it.
And as I understand on the time, but I'm a little concerned about this because, who told me? So Mr. Steffi initially told me, and this is when I called Dr. Lee and said, we have to do something with these 10th and 11th graders. The 9th graders are not as bad of a situation, the 10th and 11th. And that's when he said, well, we'll take the ones coming back from the seniors plus the 600 that were purchased for kindergartners, which are just sitting there, which I understand, I guess they're not just sitting there, but whatever. Those they will go to 10th and 11th. And Mr. Steffi said as long as we ordered them in June, they would be here at the beginning of July to be whatever needs to happen to them, okay? Now I understand that any new ones won't actually arrive until closer to September. Josh, I don't know if you know anything about that. If you'd like to stay out of this, I wouldn't
I
blame
did
you.
hear that. And what,
So how would this plan work? We can't take them back from the 8th graders,
right.
and that doesn't work. If
Right.
they're not really getting here until September and configure, because we start in August.
IT, I think, wanted to do more exploration of which vendors are saying that, though. I'm not aware of who Mr. Steffi spoke to personally about that.
No, that last September bit, yeah, I got that from someone else. John thought they could be here at the beginning of July, but then as I understand, that's not correct. Do you know, Josh? I don't know.
But like, not, a warehouse, not having to come from another country. But it also depends on how many we need.
And it depends on if someone else snaps them up, some other district, in the meantime. So this could not, and again, I understand this is not a
Yes.
IA issue. This may not be feasible in a timeliness fashion, because we cannot, can you just imagine? We can't take back the,
I've been told
this
by
seems
IT that we can.
it's unfortunate, we are where we are, and this seems a bit cumbersome.
It is.
Accomplish
Yeah.
by August, first, even by Labor Day. I'm sure the kids would be perfectly happy to not have to do
Right.
very much work in eighth or ninth grade at the very first couple of days, and that's fine, but.
I think there was a recognition at the meeting, though, that this is a huge undertaking, but if we don't take steps to get this right, we're going to be sitting here every year. We want to be in a predictable pattern of what the board will need as a recurring expense to support whatever initiative it be, whether it be 6 to 12 or 5 to 12. We want to be able to accurately say each year, this is the number of cars that we need each year to make our fleet work. I do think
I don't
that-
disagree with
yeah.
that. I'm concerned about the timing because it is now June. So who would make, all right, let's say this proceeds. What's the next step? I guess
So we were
business has
thinking
to-
we could get the quotes to you for business affairs, and then we can make the purchase in June. But again, that depends. I don't know what the instructional what is the consensus from instructional affairs? Is it that we re-examine K to 6? Is it that we go 3rd through 6th 1-to-1? Is it we do nothing and let the K to 4 have it? We need to know what the board's desire is in this.
If there's something written up to give to the rest of the board, I'd say come up with the quote so we're ready to go, but there could be some opinions, and if we can get it out to the other board members, and hopefully they'll all look at it enough ahead of time. If there's
Wait,
any
no, but I think, Mrs., are you asking us, you're asking us not about this implementation per se and purchases, but are you asking us about, should we be doing K to 12 or 7 to 12 initiative? Is that what you're, 1-to-1? Is that
Yeah,
what you're asking?
I'm trying to get a sense working with the IA, but what's our future look like? Do you think we need to pause and re-examine K to 6 while still leaving them with Chromebook carts? We know 7 through 12, that's done. So redeployment of those, while it may be cumbersome, it's what we have to do. So I feel like that's put away. What we need to know as a district is, what's K to 6 look like in the future? Do we want to move 6th grade, 5th grade, 4th grade, and do a rolling implementation over the next how many years? We still need to know what to do to K to 4. Are they permitted to keep those devices if they're old? Or do we take them from them and probably get peanuts on municipal. We're looking at that.
If they are able to be used for the functionality for K to 4, or at least K and 1, then I personally would say keep them. But I would like to see at least one Chromebook cart per grade per school, because if you're going to have applications for the kids to use, having 4 teachers, or I guess 8 teachers fighting over one Chromebook cart is going to be more than painful for them.
And I know Victoria will tell you, pre-COVID, those Chromebook carts were the hottest commodity going. They are used to, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, we had a list of the things that our programs support a lot of this. So I appreciate you saying that we at least should have a per grade level Chromebook cart.
Well, we already, per grade level, right? But well, I guess the assumption is K and 1 don't use them as much, I suppose. There's not as much testing.
They
That would
use
be
them.
that would be 7 carts as opposed to the 6 proposed. But I mean, I'm saying they may not, I can imagine 6th graders might use them more often, right, than different needs for them, not just testing.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how, because K to 4 I've been out of touch with for quite a few years now. But they come in handy if you're doing stations or small groups. Yeah. So if we can, even if like 2 teachers are sharing a cart to do small groups, you want to make sure it's there.
I'm not complaining. I don't have any problem with the
Yeah,
carts.
yeah.
I'm not in disagreement. I'm just saying there's 7 grades in elementary and there's 6 carts, and you were saying 1 per grade, but I imagine kindergarten and first may not use them quite as frequently.
I mean, I'll defer to my colleagues here, but pre-COVID, we were probably going to come to you at this time and say we'd like to move 6th grade into the K to 12, into the 7 through 12 initiative. That's where we were, in our minds, we were going. We wanted to get 6th grade in a somewhat better fashion to know that once they get to middle school, you have this learning management platform. You get sent things through Schoology at home. You get messages. So if in a perfect world, if COVID hadn't happened, we were going to include 6th grade and take that, and then still leave K to 5 with the carts like we had. That's what our vision was before COVID.
I have to, I would think you would leave them with the current 6th graders. I mean, except with children transferring into the district, but 6th graders have them now. I don't see why you wouldn't leave them with them. And then the 6 carts, I guess, then would be for K to 5, because, there's other instructional issues floating around here, right? Because I would look at the equity report, right? The equity report is saying we should be, and I guess this committee will discuss that at some point, that higher level math should be offered to 6th graders in every building. And so having a Chromebook for that would probably make sense. Not that they should be on Alex all day long learning that.
I also believe,
I mean, so that's just an issue that's out there, and it's a separate discussion, but
I also think Dr. Velasquez, I don't know if it was at a live meeting, Victoria, or if it was at one of our recent meetings. I think it might have been an internal. She made a very impassioned plea about keeping these Chromebooks in the hands of kids, like to take them away from K to 6 almost. Forget about the fleet, forget about the ages and all that. But I know, Victoria, you talked about equity, and this is a district where we've given kids this huge, powerful resource, and now it feels like we're taking it away. There's so many considerations.
Well, that's why I was asking if you changed your mind.
No, we didn't just.
Well, let me. I was someone who didn't want, right? Like, I don't even want an art. I don't even want them using iPads in art, right? So I'm Miss Anti-Technology. So that's me, right? Remember that. And I was a person who definitely didn't want K to 4. And I have to say, Dr. Velasquez was so eloquent. She convinced me. So now you had me there. And now I'm like, well,
we're not changing our minds. We're just giving
right there.
all the scenario.
I mean, yeah, you had me there. But now, I mean, I I was concerned about not knowing where we're going with this, like exactly how they're going to be used. So you had me there, but I'm better with, frankly, I'm better with this. So I don't mind letting the K to 4s. I think that's inefficient, economically inefficient, and a waste of, it's going to ultimately be, I don't know, Josh, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine looking at all those K to 4 devices to figure out what's good, what's not, putting municipal bid. That can't possibly be economically smart. You know, getting the $5 and spending $15 of person power, right, to
But I'm
achieve that result.
Mr. Steffi said that was protocol. We have to inventory it and go to.
No, but if we
municipal.
let the kids, right, the inventory, right, having to inventory, do all that, that's a nightmare. So I would say just let them keep it. So it's not quite equity, right? But they do have it in their hands. Let them keep it. And then, so it would be the 5th graders.
I know you shared with us, I mean, and I agree with your sentiments, Victoria, like, this is something we gave K to 6. And
I gotta say, I don't think the 9th, well.
forget about all that for a second. I think it's a I know you will never forget.
Well, you
but
can't, right? Because you got all these, I mean, the age of the devices is a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's, you can't not look at it. I get the philosophy, I mean, my philosophy, right? We don't want my philosophy.
No, we
'cause
don't want your
I'm in the
philosophy.
Stone Age, right? But,
I do want to check with Mr. Steffi, because our understanding, and I could be wrong, and I hope he's watching, was that they still have to, he doesn't come to instructional affairs. Like, I think he said that they must be inventoried and go on municipal bid and then
Oh,
back
yeah.
to the kids.
that's right. No,
So one way or another, I
oh,
think.
wait a minute. They've all got to come back K to 4 be inventoried? Why? If they're just going to keep them?
I think before things go on municipal bid, he said things.
No, yes, before, but no, I'm saying don't put them on municipal bid.
Okay,
Just
that
let
I'd
them
check with
keep
him.
them. Dr. Velasquez, you've been trying to push your button, and I push mine too much. Mrs. Leon and I push our buttons too much.
That's done on purpose.
We still believe the team and the intent and purpose in those kids having those devices in their hands and learning from their teachers specifically how to use those in the event that something like that would occur again, so that they can say to a child, here's a device. This is how we would use it in this instance. If you were home, here's how you would access these things, so they are better prepared to be able to do that. And like we talked about, we would need time to be able to implement that as a specific K to 1, K to 6 initiative. Did I just say K to 1 and then K to 6? It should be a very specific K to 6 initiative, but like we talked about the last time, we would need time to be able to do that effectively and efficiently, so that we were defining what screen time would look like in a classroom, what that would look like in their use at home. They would need access to those devices. If that's the way that we go, they need those devices. If it's not, this is another alternative to consider, so that all of our students that do have or will need a device to be able to fulfill the terms of that 7 to 12 initiative have access. This would be another way that we could do that. So here's 2 ways that we could look at that. So we're always going to advocate for our students having those devices moving forward, because we don't want them to be behind other districts or behind other kids, right? However, in the meantime, until that is an actual approved initiative, here's another alternative to consider. Look, you tasked us with doing something. We did it. Here it lies right before you. So now the decision is, which direction
Well,
do
this
we
sure
go?
doesn't look
I'm
like what
glad
I
that
thought
my
it was going to look
impassioned
like.
plea was effective, so
Well-
that our kids have what they need, and that our teachers will be able to do that with them.
Well, but this is actually different because, yeah, right, because this would not,
Look, this is
I'm okay
tough,
with-
right? It's hard. It's hard to figure out what the next steps are.
I can do that. But this, I think what has me concerned just immediately, the device plan, I don't think, I'm concerned. What do I know, right? I don't do purchasing, but just watching what's happened and knowing how, 1 minute you see something on Amazon and it's there, and the next minute it's gone, right? And if you want thousands of these things, I'm sure that's a consideration. I don't think this is realistic to have us ready to rock on August, what is it, 30th. I don't believe this is realistic. Now, that wouldn't have anything to do with the philosophy of how we're proceeding. So I don't know. I guess I don't wish to go to another committee to discuss this, but we can do that because
You're
I've
not
been to
permitted
so
to
many.
discuss this outside of this committee. We've taken control of Chromebooks.
That's fine, except
We will not
your
take
committee and a
control.
director who isn't even hired yet, and employees who aren't even hired yet will be actually implementing this piece of it, right? And that's a problem. I
And
don't
that is
think
one-
this is real.
That is one of the considerations that we did put in there, that we need them to be an integral part into this process so that we are aware of their side, they're aware of our side, and that we're doing due diligence for all
I think we had
involved
to,
stakeholders.
we had to resuscitate our new supervisor of innovation and technology because he strongly believes that this should be in the hands of K-6 students
Right.
every year, and that it's our due diligence. He did. He almost needed to
And in
be
his new role,
resuscitated.
he needs to be able to be the bridge between the two of those, and we need to get all of those folks at the table also. That wouldn't be fair to leave them out of that process either. Look, there's a lot of moving parts right now that we need to get all these folks at the table, but we need a tech director, right?
That's why I think this is too ambitious. I understand the concept. Like, it would make sense, right? The 8th graders going to 9th graders, then they're just done, right? What they have is what they have for high school. I get the concept. I think this is overly ambitious and will not happen in an orderly fashion, like I said, without even an IT
So
director.
can we table this until we get a tech director?
No, we cannot because, no, here's why.
Thank you
No,
for
it's the
starting.
ordering. It's the
It's one or
ordering.
the other here.
No, you can't. It's the ordering. It won't happen in time. This should have already, I mean, this is not, no one here's fault.
As far as an initiative, that needs to
No,
be
not
part
the
of that
initiative. I
process.
just mean getting the 10th and, listen, 10th and 11th graders must have something
Agreed.
by August 30th. And theirs must be collected by, when's the last day of school? June 17th.
Right.
So there's a very small window here to make that happen. I don't know how you,
They don't have to be collected by the last day. That's what I was reading on Josh's face.
I think they do just because you won't see them. Maybe that doesn't matter because they're so funky. If they're not going to municipally bid, it doesn't matter, right?
It's one in, one out, right?
I think, and like,
Okay, fine. Don't give them back. But having new ones ready to rock on August 30th, that's my real concern, right? Those 10th and 11th graders are in such poor condition. I can't imagine what we do with them. I don't know. Whatever. That's fine. But
10th and 11th grade Chromebooks, not 10th and 11th graders.
oh no, my fans who are listening will be very upset. No, you have lovely 10th and 11th. I saw your 10th grader and he was right in front of me at the parade, marching handsomely. Certainly not ready to be gotten rid of. Yes, he is hard to miss. My 10th grader was also at the parade. So, but the next step then is, well, something has to get ordered. If this is to put in place, something has to get ordered, and it has to get approved this month, right? Because the time.
Minimally, I think
slippeth
we all
away.
agreed there was an order. Whether, yes.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how many. If we're not going to business with this, which I have no interest in so doing,
Me either.
because I don't really want to go to business this month, but although, well, it's facilities. How many? 630 for Chrome cards plus
A grade level,
8th grade.
correct.
So
So what's that approximately, Kate? Do you know?
1,200.
we don't need the ones for the cards if K-4 are keeping their devices.
Right. So that's I think that's what the contingency pieces are. Like, are we keeping devices? Because if we're keeping devices with kids, that comes off the carts. But also, we're gonna have to replace some because some of those that are out with K-4 are really bad. So it's really a matter of which way you're moving. If you go with this plan right here that they talked about, there's the grade level purchase and then the carts in the elementary schools. So I don't know they gave me the number of 600. Is that what you guys typically buy for a grade level?
Which gives us.
But What about fifth grade though? Because this is taking the fifth graders. So if you let K to 4 keep them, sixth, seventh, this chart leaves fifth grade without any.
No, so it does. They won't.
And-
They'll be part of the carts. So if in this plan, this is just where the current devices are now. So that the grade levels you're looking at, that's where the devices are now. Those current K to 5 students, future 1st to 6th graders, will be part of the carts if we go in this direction. So the current 5th graders we have right now, who are upcoming 7th graders, they'll be part of the K to 6 carts. So they don't need a device switched into their hands.
I understand that, but then you were asking what should we do to K to 4s, and I was saying, well, let them keep them because those are the ones that the current fifth graders have are not old, right? They're a year at most.
They're the 5th and 6th grade have the newest devices.
Yes, I know. So if you're going to let the K to 4 keep them just because they're so old, keep them at home, is what I assume, right? But the fifth graders need to be under this plan. The fifth graders, the K to 4 old ones, they just keep them at home, whatever. The fifth graders are going to be collected and given to the ninth graders, according to this chart. The current sixth graders will keep theirs, which makes sense because they're heading off to 7th grade, right? So the current fifth graders who are upcoming sixth graders will not have anything in their hand, but they will have use of the Chromebook, the 3 Chromebook carts which currently exist in every school.
Well, there's a couple things rolled up in that. So our current K to 4, not all kids have old devices, correct, Josh? So we do need to collect.
We need to
back
collect the newer ones.
because there are newer devices mixed in with that K to 4 that filled holes. Kids that came later when we didn't have any left, they got newer devices. I think I'm correct in that, right? And so if this plan is only inclusive of if we are taking devices from all current K through 5th grade students. What you're talking about now is a different plan. So if we're leaving devices with kids, that changes things, that adds more to the purchase of what we need to buy for new. Am I correct? So that's a little bit of a different plan.
So if the board were in favor of letting current K to 5s keep them, then that adds another 600, but also removes, wait, let me clarify. When we say keep them, do we mean keep them at home? Or they would, if the current 5th graders kept them, would they bring them to school every day? Because they're older, because they're going to be 6th graders next year.
So those kids would bring their Chromebooks to school. And if we're keeping the ones with the K to 4, we're now, if you're saying they stay home, right, then what are they going to use when they're in school if we don't have the carts in school? So we have to figure out, that's I think where all the little nuance pieces come into this is, are we expecting kids to bring them back and forth? Are we keeping them out with kids? Are we giving carts? So we have to kind of, back to the point of direction, the plan morphs every time one of these little pieces changes, because you add a grade level back in, that's a whole new level we have to purchase of Chromebooks. So that's another 600 Chromebooks, which is like roughly $160,000, right?
Yes,
so,
right.
Every time one piece of this changes, the whole plan kind of has to morph.
If you'd like a direct answer from me, I can give you one, but I'm just one person. I don't know what Mrs. Nicholas and I guess Mrs. Snyder couldn't be here with us. If it were me, piece number 1, this is too much shuffling around. This won't be viable in my mind, so that has to be addressed. But if I'm looking at the current, I would let the current 5th graders also keep theirs. You've got on the plan 6th and 7th graders, of course, keep their devices. I would let 5th grade keep them as well because they're rising 6th graders. I would then, however, on another slide, buy 630 for an additional 3 carts at every elementary school. That I would not do. I would collect, this is just my opinion, I would collect K to 4, any new ones, K to 4. So those could go to carts as well, because I think there's probably more new K to 4s out there than we're thinking. I don't know if anybody has an exact number, but based on how many this board approved and how many were purchased, I bet there's a decent number out there. So I would bring back any new K to 4s to make additional carts per elementary school. Let the 5th graders keep them, 6th grade keep them, 7th grade keep them, and now I have to think a minute on, but that's my general thought.
I defer to the tech department because they're the ones who have to deal with it. That's
But
where I am.
we just were
It's-
told, Mrs. Leon said, this
Up to
isn't
you
going
guys.
further. We're staying here. And we don't have an IT director, and we don't have, then that.
The current complement, let's not have the current tech director. The worker bees that are in there right
Right.
now told me this was doable.
Like I said, they're the ones who have to
Now,
do
they
it.
did ask if we could use, if we could get more student workers, because the student workers do a lot over the summer with this preparation. I guess I'm also looking for,
Oh, I'm sorry, I had a real quick question. I
Yes.
don't see the seniors, we have seniors who have to bring them back, right, as part of their obligation. Where are those in here?
put that slide back up.
I'm looking at it.
These are their devices, they're at the bottom of the current grade device plan. It's a 12th grade. Their devices will be collected and deployed to the current 10th graders.
I see. Thank you. I missed that.
I think boy,
So,
I hate having lawyers on the school board. They measure every word. I have 2 of them at home. Well, they don't live with me, but my daughter and son-in-law measure my words. So you remind me of them. If this, but not being a court of law, just being philosophical and visionary, I think what Victoria said, I think about 2. We are going to be behind other districts because they plan mostly on keeping their K-12 initiatives. And they were moving further along than we were. We were moving pretty quickly. We went, 9 through 12, and then we moved it 7 through 12, and then we wanted to make it 6 through 12. And boards change, and I understand that. But I think it's fair to say the philosophy was to continue down this road of going K-12 1-to-1.
well, I'm in favor of moving it to 6th. So that's why the current 5th graders would go ahead and keep theirs. And that's just my opinion. I'm in favor of heading in that direction. Let's make it 6 to 12. So that means they would keep theirs. But all I'm suggesting is instead of that 630 for 3 additional carts per elementary school, I would take that 630 and put them in the 9th grade, current grade 9th grade device plan.
So what you're
Just
saying,
use a different use for them. And so there would probably be possibly fewer carts. I don't know how many new ones are out there, K to 4, but there might be fewer.
so you're saying, in
mhm.
addition to collecting K-4 back as well, I'm just trying to make sure I have this when I relay it back to the team. So you want the K-4 still to be collected and them left with carts. Our current 5th grade keeping what they have, and then we'd have to buy 2 grade levels worth of Chromebooks.
Which 2 grade levels?
The current 8th grade and the current 9th grade.
Yes, it's right. Yes. So it's the same total number. It's just what happens to them. Right.
So
That's my thought.
my only concern is what will be left with, and I don't know the answer to this, so I can't say, but what will be left for the K-4 students to use? We'd have to see how many carts that would leave in the building right, without purchasing any new carts. Because I want to be sure that from the ones we think are in carts, right, the kindergarten ones that we think are in carts, that each building has a minimum 3, right, for instructional purposes.
They have 3 now.
If they do, 2, we believe it's 2.
How can that be if that 600 went to carts?
Also,
Right, as a board member, I would like to know the 600 that were purchased in February, and you guys may not have this answer.
yes,
There were 600 brand new ones purchased this February. Where did they go? And I understand no one at this table may have the answer. At some point, I'd like to know, because I was told they were sitting around, not, getting ready for the incoming kindergartners. Then I was told that they were sitting around and could be used for the 10th and 11th graders in combination with the 12th graders. I have been specifically told this, so where? And then tonight, there was suggestion of the 600 is in carts distributed around the district. But
I'm not
2
saying
carts,
they haven't been distributed yet, right?
There's 2 carts per school.
The other, I guess I have a concern now that I'm thinking about K to 4. So if you were lucky to get an older machine, you get one for free, and if you weren't, you get nothing. I'm concerned about
well, maybe
that.
you do, well, then that concept wouldn't work then.
That's what I'm
Right,
asking. I'm
right,
just
that wouldn't
bringing
work.
this up.
Josh, you have any sense of how many new ones are sitting K to 4? Because K to 4 students, that's 5 grade levels.
Not
That's
sure if he would
3,000
know
devices.
specifically.
You probably wouldn't know.
My best estimate would, one, in theory, 1 grade level spread throughout K through 4, so 500, but that's spread over 5
Just-
grades.
Right. But those would,
But I don't, it could be
right,
2, it could be.
right. But that's another cart worth. Because a cart for all
So can I
elementaries-
ask, and you don't have to answer, what is your concern? Let me make sure that I have it right. We've got to. Okay. I got you. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to push my button.
Okay.
I'd just like an inventory.
Got it. So a current inventory of where all all Chromebook devices are.
If my guess, based on I've been, oh my gosh, 4 or 5 months of tracking where are these Chromebooks, I suspect, because I get your concern, Kate, you need, if we're going to do this, you need to have enough carts per elementary school. And I really do understand that what they're used for. I'm not too far elementary school. Lucas is only in 7th, so I'm
We
with you.
also we want
But-
you to know, we understand your concern about screen time.
Yeah.
That's never really been fully developed, and with the board being so gracious as to Brian Allen's position, it's going to morph further into, there's a lot we want to know too. So you've brought up a lot of good points about what's appropriate screen time, what's appropriate amount of time at home for this developmental. You've given us a lot to think about, but we are just trying I can't tell you, I just want
I'm
you
sure
to
you're
know, a lot of meetings are taking place. My only concern is I would rather keep it in one tidy place, because it just seems like whoever you ask, you may not get
I did not
exactly
ask
the
to be bounced from committee to committee, I can assure you.
We-
Every
well-
committee said go to the next one.
Like I said, formally, Mr. Britton a lot of times came to instructional affairs. He liked to go to business
Makes
affairs,
sense.
but he was instructional affairs.
Makes sense.
And when we meet in instructional cabinet, the current director is a member of instructional cabinet, so that they're always aware of what we're doing.
Right, makes sense. But I think, Kate, to your concern, if my suspicion, not suspicion, that makes it, if my estimate is accurate, enough or new ones are in K to 4 that you will have plenty of carts. And so then the board would be formally taking the action of extending 1-to-1 down to 6th grade, moving in that direction. So it would still be approximately 1,000 to 1,200 purchases, but they'd be going to 2 grade levels as opposed to on carts. But I think there's probably enough out there.
So let me make sure I understand. So the overarching theme. There's probably enough Chromebooks that are in good standing to support 7 through 12. We're okay with going down to 6th grade as a future grade, adding to our initiative. There's probably enough that we could collect to support Chromebooks. Is the idea that we think, and you do like the idea that we form a little committee with parents, teachers, to see what's appropriate in K to 5. It's okay to have these Chromebooks in buildings for teachers to continue to incorporate. But you probably don't see a future purchase because with our fleet, we should be able to sustain.
She sees 2 grade level
It
purchases.
would help probably. This is, I do understand why this is all confusing. That device plan, could I have that printed?
But you
Thank
do
you.
see what, 2 grade levels being
Yeah, you'd
purchased?
still be purchasing 2 grade levels, but
Only reason I'm asking, I want to get that quote right away.
yes, yeah. The device plan supposes 1 grade level purchase and 630 for carts. I'm suggesting instead of make it 2 grade level purchases instead. Same number, basically. That's what I'm suggesting. And then that puts us down at 6 to 12, 1-to-1 initiative, right? Get those 6th graders ready for middle school because it's no secret I'm in favor of 6th grade moving to middle school. I think everybody is, it's not just me, right? So, and then you have plenty of carts, and then you see what you want to do with those K to 4s, which are in whatever state of what they are.
So we're making the assumption that we would purchase for the current 8th graders and 9th graders new devices. So they'd be the 2 grade levels that would then get the new devices. Because they would
Can I see it on paper? I think so, but can I see it on paper first? But I think that's what we're talking
because
about,
right
right?
now the current 8th graders would get new devices and the current 9th graders would absorb the 5th grade devices. So if we take that away, the current 8th and 9th graders who would have the devices, second to longest.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's how, right, because it's the 9th and 5th swap. Yes. So you just let the current, because that way you don't have to like reconfigure them and re-inventory, right? So it's really just the 8th graders are going to the 11th graders, right? And
Correct.
then the 9th graders.
The 9th graders.
Oh, wait a minute. This plan already had them going to the 5th graders.
They were getting them from the 5th graders. The current 9th graders were going to be getting.
Oh,
them
that
from the
are
5th
currently
graders.
deployed, right?
Yep.
So
So
what happens to the current
they're they're going to be put into loaner carts for the day-to-day loaners.
got it. So to help not the elementary schools, but to help middle school and high school. Got it.
Correct.
I think you and I are on the same page. I don't know if Mrs. Nicholas is there.
Kate, I hope you have.
Mrs. Henshaw and I have reached
We've
something.
We've mind melded.
I was there 40
Well, that's
minutes
frightening,
ago.
Mrs. Henshaw. But I do think, and in part of the reason I'm in favor of this is an equity argument, because I'm hoping this cabinet will next, by August, figure out how we're going to, and this is up Mr. Ferrara's alley. Look, he's like, why? Don't talk to me. Don't. I've been sitting here quietly minding my business. No, you didn't look at the look on his face.
Oh, I thought you said you were sitting there quietly.
Oh,
minding your
no,
business.
that would
That's why
be-
I looked at you that way.
That would be inconsistent with my character. No, Mr. Ferraro is. How are we going to get upper level math options to all 6th grade buildings? That should get you excited without using the evil only online programs.
Yeah, we've already begun to discuss our options. Mr. Cohen and I talked briefly about it last week, so we are
I have a
Cohen, what's this have to do
I
with Mr.
have a
Cohen?
suggestion.
brainstorming ideas.
Mr.
I have
Cohen
a
is brainstorming?
suggestion.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Leon.
that Mr. Ferraro be the K to 12 math supervisor like we hired him for, and not the PIMS coordinator and the district assessment coordinator and looking over Sapphire in Mr. Torres's absence. It would be great if he could be the supervisor of math, as was the vision 6 years ago.
Well, I will refer you
Don't
to your
those all-
superintendent, Mrs. Leon.
Don't those all fall under and duties as assigned?
In other districts,
just
to be
kidding.
very clear, in other districts, your English language arts and your math supervisor, they are pivotal positions that focus just on that. And so I just want to say that he is doing PIMS. We had an entire person that just did PIMS, and he absorbed their job. Other districts have a district assessment coordinator and a PD coordinator in one. He assumed that whole position, and he is now currently holding down Sapphire. I don't even want to go with Mrs. Hinshaw. Like, these two supervisors are to be commended on the buckets of
No
responsibilities they
doubt.
have.
I have no doubt. I have an easy fix for this.
What, you're going to
math.
give us more supervisors?
No, I think the math fix is, Mr. Cohen and I were discussing this. I think the math fix, look, Mr. Cohen, he's so pleased to be brought into this. I think
Yes,
the
you
math
have not
fix
picked
is,
on him. Please do so.
there's always time, Mrs. Leon. But I think there's actually a relatively easy fix that we could do by August without stressing the wondrous Mr. Ferraro too much with regard to his other duties. Would you say, Mrs. Nicholas, other duties as assigned? Yes. And Mrs. Henshaw as well. But we can, is that going to be on, oh no, we won't be back again until August, will we? Because we do not meet in July. Well, I'll ask that
My
question
main
in a
concern
minute.
is to get an order on the June
Yes.
action
So
meeting.
I think if Mrs. Henshaw and I have had a mind meld, and Mrs. Nicholas is fearful of joining in that, no doubt, but perhaps would defer.
As long as the tech department can do the plan, I am okay with it.
Well, this actually
No
makes it
pressure.
easier on them. What we're suggesting, I think, makes it easier on them. The only difference is K to 4. You'd have to go ahead and get them back. Those would have to come back so that any new ones can be readied for carts. That's the difference. But then you don't have to collect the 5th graders and whatever them for the 9th graders. It actually winds up being either the same or slightly easier on the tech department end.
And all kidding aside, the 3 supervisors sitting in the room, including Tammy Woodmogul, all kidding aside, they've done everything we've asked them and then some. We have not missed a beat. They have had things added that I think other people in other districts wouldn't be able to do. So I just want to thank them for all they're doing, and we haven't missed a beat because of them.
I hate to do this because the hour wanes, but these are just 2 little things. Are we good with Chromebooks? You good? Josh?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
I had 2 small questions. We're good with Chromebooks?
I think
Ms. Nicholas,
this
you're
has
on
been a
board?
very healthy discussion and helps guide some of any questions related to Chromebooks all come through instructional affairs, not business affairs anymore.
Oh, Mr. Steffi's not escaping so easily. Mr. Steffi, I was just texting Mr. Steffi. I said, "Where are you, Mr. Steffi?" He informs me he's at home.
Watching?
I should suggest that he do. I'd be happy to catch him up on the conversation
We're happy to zoom them in.
next time. We'll look forward to seeing you next time, Mr. Steffi. But he could seriously watch the video.
Yes, sure,
Yes,
sure. I think
absolutely.
I'm going to have to watch the video just to see what the plan. Okay. I
Ma-
think that concludes actual agenda items.
No, there's another one at the bottom.
Okay, Mr. Cohen, the policy.
Sure. So, PSBA, we have 2 policies in the books, 113.3 and 113.4. 113.3 is currently screening and evaluations for students with disabilities, and 113.4 is special education evaluations and independent educational evaluations at public expense. So PSBA has come out with a new 113.4 that they're calling confidentiality of special education student information. So basically what we had to do was combine 113.3 and 113.4 into one policy that will be numbered 113.3. So we can then move forward and adopt their new policy of 113.4. So you can see on board docs, anything in green is a change, and you can see really from the midway point on down, all of that in green is basically policy that was lifted from the old 113.4 and dropped into 113.3. That's it. Just turning 2 into 1.
I don't have the energy, Mr. Cohen.
We didn't change any language. It was just literally lifting and dropping.
That's what I,
So is this, so then what, this would move to policy committee?
Yes, I basically need 113.4 open so I could put a new policy in there. Yep.
I think that concludes agenda items. Madam Chair.
may I ask two questions, two
Yes,
topics?
you may.
Number one, since the board was, last week? Yes, last week at our, or whatever week it was, when we last met regular action, and we discussed in terms of new staff, Mr. Steffi is going to add into the final budget the 3 bilingual instructional aides for the high school level. So I just wanted to comment. I know that's been discussed here and about for a while. Mr. Bowman had a tentative plan, and I think, Ms. Henshaw, he was going to discuss that with you. And then now, as I know things are changing about, so Dr. Velasquez, in terms of implementation and whatnot. So the concept that those would be used, not in, and forgive my terminology, not the ESL classes. I know that's not the current terminology, right? Not where the classes where you go to learn English, but right now I'm going to stick my foot. I see you smiling at me, Dr. Velasquez. I'm sticking my foot in it. You know what I mean. So
You can refer to them as EL students now.
no, the classes themselves. So in their schedule, they have like usually 1 or 2 period block, which is designed to help them master English, right? But then they may still go to biology and algebra and those things, right? So the concept with these 3 IAs is that they would be deployed in algebra, math, algebra, bio, and with room permitting, then to social studies, focusing on the keystone, because if the legislature is serious, starting with the class of 2023, we'll see, right, that these keystones are real. So those children may need to pass them as well. So the focus would be on algebra, bio, and then social studies would be the next content area where those 3 IAs would go, some type of configuration. And that was the discussion. And I think, Ms. Henshaw, you have that information too?
So yeah, what Mr. Bowman relayed to me was that the goal was, like you said, to put them into the aids, that is, into the classes, push in to the math class or the science class, and then social studies. Typically, the students we're talking about, level 1 and 2, don't have general ed English while they're level 1 and 2, so that they would be pushed into the other areas where
Right.
students would need support.
Right. And then there'd need, I guess, Mr. Garska does kind of the scheduling at the high school. So not that we want to put all our children with English language needs in the same classes, but some sort of grouping so that the IAs could be most effectively used, a few kids at a time, that would need to happen. So I just wanted to raise it since that just happened at the board meeting, and presumably we will approve that at the end of this month. But I know those types of hiring that needs to get on personnel to make sure the hiring occurs, and then the scheduling address so that can be worked out. And 3 IAs means we'd have a total of 21 class periods that they would be available to assist, which is wonderful. All for high school, right? With our goal of elevating the graduation rate of our EL children. Because if you, well, I don't know, you've all seen the equity report. Those numbers are lagging behind, but of course we want our children to graduate timely with their cohorts. And then that would also, I'd ask, who, they would need some time, I would think. So whoever these new employees are, they would, during PD days, they would need to coordinate with whatever teachers they would be working with. So whoever does, is that this committee? Is that, who does that?
There's language in their contract on how many professional development days they get and they come in for.
Right.
3 or 4, I think. I can't remember.
Right.
off the top of my head.
But as I understand it, if additional ones were needed, they've been paid on a per diem rate to come and do that. But my concern is that happened at the beginning of this year. So just so that it's on someone's radar because we want to make the best and most effective use of these employees and get our kids from those cohorts onto track, keystones or whatever they may need to do.
Was there I think there was a job description given in personnel.
That's,
While
you
ago.
are right, Mrs. Leon, because when we had the approval for one temporary, there is, and I don't know if that matches, I don't remember, but you're correct, there's something out there. So it would just, how would that work then? Since that job description's out there, I guess the personnel department just places the opening out. I
Let's
don't know
wrap
where it
around
goes,
with-
out into the ether,
We can wrap around with Ms. Hanks, but
Okay.
take a look at that again.
right?
I do remember there was a job description form for when we were going to do just the one.
Right. And I know Dr. Velasquez already had a plan for figuring out who is both in spoken language and written language sufficiently bilingual to proceed, that they would be an effective IA in that situation. That right, Dr. Velasquez?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that's beautiful. Number 2 was the math. What discussions might take place to help make advanced level math available for 6th graders, not just if you're in the gifted program, but to any 6th grade student who might have those abilities. I guess basically would that mean taking pre-algebra in 6th grade is kind of what it would be, Mr. Farrar.
Yeah, the hurdles we're going to have are that most of our elementary schools have between 2, 3, or 4 6th grade classes right now, and some of the smaller schools might not have enough students to form a full class of what you would consider an advanced cohort of students. So the teaching staff, the availability of the teachers, and the number of teachers in the grade level would be our biggest hurdle to jump. Some of our schools could probably pull it off, some of our bigger buildings, but our elementary schools are not the same size.
Right, no,
That
I
makes it very
I
difficult.
definitely know that. So in the 6th grades now, or the 6th grade, at least in the bigger ones, or actually in the smaller ones as well, I take that back, they have the ability to, like one of the 6th grade teacher kind of takes over the math role, and another one, that's happening in all our elementary
is.
schools, right?
Yep.
Okay. And are this, whatever certification 6th grade math teacher, 6th grade teachers have, could they teach pre-algebra?
Pre-algebra would need to be a middle level certified teacher, which is usually grades 6 to 9. So if they have that middle level cert, they could formally teach a pre-algebra course. My recommendation would be to look for something along the lines of a club that happens during the school day. Maybe a group of kids get pulled during win time to an advanced math club, something along those lines. 'Cause
And
I
that
just
would
don't-
not satisfy our equity report.
But it would help. It would move us in the right direction. 'Cause
But well,
I just don't think
let's
it's
see if we can, could we investigate at our current elementary schools how many teachers we might have with that certification and where
absolutely
we're,
we can.
yeah. I mean, a club is great, but that just means extra work for those kids because then they still have to do their regular math. And then they are not likely to be eligible to move into Algebra 1 for 7th grade just because they were in a club. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And then I guess another preliminary step would be, did we do any type of testing this year that would tell us how many kids we have in each school that might be prepared for that?
Yes, we do. We do have our Imagine Math benchmark test. We did 3 times this year. We do have the PSSA tests for what they're going to tell us for the students that took them. We will have those results as well. And of course, we have teacher recommendations, which at that grade level are very good, usually very useful.
So could I ask this committee to kind of take a peek at that and look at, see what we might be able, when we come back in August, see what
You know, it's
might be able to pull
interesting.
off.
I swear I remember a couple years ago, before you came up, Doug, that we did experiment with, not experiment, but we, right, we experimented with the children, no. Um, It's been a long day. We've done interviews all day. Only, and I agree with what you're saying, a couple of considerations to remember are students identified as gifted who do the upper level math, listen to that, who take the upper level math classes. This happens in all the districts. They do not perform well on the PSSA 7th and 8th grade because they miss some of that content. Some of our teachers at the high school have noticed that them missing some of those pieces in the general math grade curriculum in 7th and 8th shows up sometimes at the high school, if I'm making sense. So understood what you're saying. So bring down that algebra, that geometry. And we're noticing that on the Keystones, they do great in that subject area. But we also have a strong correlation where they do very poorly on just 7th and 8th grade mathematics, PSSA. And we have heard feedback from teachers that sometimes it's as if they're missing some gaps when they
It's
get to the high
interesting. I
school.
wonder, I understand the
I'd like
concept.
to dig a little bit more to give you some more quantifiable data, but that's what we've heard from them, that you can
Yeah.
tell. So I think we also have to come up with a way, while they're in these higher level math classes, to still give them the eligible content that's tested in 7th and 8th grade on the PSSA.
And in this case, 6th grade. So I guess the end game here is to increase our participation in our AP courses. Is that what the ultimate end game here is?
If you're asking from, I got a lot of in games, Mr. Ferraro, but this one is actually just
my
following.
biggest question is, what's the rush? If you look at the research, there's.
Oh, I'll tell you the rush.
Please.
Because we have a lot of black and brown children without access to honors and upper level math. I'm taking this one. This one was actually not my. I got a lot of in games. This one wasn't mine. This is coming straight from the equity report. And the end game is the sooner the better with our children. So it's not just for
Research says that.
APs.
What research says that that's what's best for kids?
Well, if you'd like to come and take it up with our consultants, you may, but I'm just giving you back that. This means our kid, not every white kid and every black kid and every brown kid is math whiz. Lord knows I'm not, right? No, so it's not access to APs necessarily, but to give them more opportunities. And if you limit it to only gifted, there's lots of black, white, brown, whoever kids who don't have access to that. So that is a piece of the equity report that really wasn't about racially diverse kids. It was just about everybody.
I'm not such I know exactly, I think what did you say? What was the word, Kate? Mine?
Are we?
But I will
So
tell
exciting.
you, and I will tell you, though, that our students in the gifted program or identified as gifted, we have seen a lot of data where they don't perform well in 7th and 8th grade PSSA.
I know. I was about to tell you, but I wonder, maybe Mrs. Nicholas might have some commentary here. I think, and I hate to say it, but I will, I think that's because they're uninterested, not that they should be, but they are sometimes uninterested in paying attention to those.
I don't know. Denise Little, a teacher who I really revered in the gifted program, that we had a lot of conversations about that. They're just not, I still think they can be given the content, 7th and 8th grade eligible content, and take advantage of the higher level class. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't think they need to skip it.
Absolutely happen.
Yeah,
Sure, there's no reason
I
it
think they're
can't.
capable. I think the onus is on us to make sure they get the higher level math opportunity, our non-gifted peers, but we also have a responsibility, because I don't feel good that we're putting them before a PSSA test with eligible content that they've never been exposed to. Well, I hope you feel that way when it's in the paper and you say our scores are declining, because
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that. What about the kids who are really high in reading and writing and would do good with the advanced classes that the gifted students have, but they don't have the math background, which
They don't have, but our EL, well, listen, if we want to go there, I would like us to have honors classes because that can be state taught in 6th grade as well. I don't know why we don't have honors classes in our middle schools. And if we did, like a number of districts do, that would address that problem. Because I think that's a problem with science and everything. We should have honors classes in middle school, but we don't. But
I
I'd be
think we-
more than I
we-
think that would be a good
yeah.
direction to have a discussion.
Well, we do.
Honors classes?
Well, we don't call them honors classes. We
What do we
call
do
them
then?
GT courses.
No. There's
And we put
different
them-
levels.
And we put them in Schaefer Middle School.
No. There's gifted, which is one level, but I'm saying for anyone who may not meet that gifted criteria, there should be honors level, just like in the high school.
There
That
is
should
in
be,
math. For the record, there is in math.
well, right, because you could still advance in math,
Have algebra
right?
1
I'm
for
sorry,
each.
I'm talking about, but Mrs. Nicholas was talking about ELA, for example. So I think in middle school, there should be science, social studies, and ELA honors courses, if you're asking me. I've said this for a long time. This isn't the first time I've said it. There's, just like in the high school, you have some gifted courses, and you're very strict on your criteria with that, Mr. Cohen. So there's gifted level, but there should be honors and CP.
Again,
middle
it goes
school.
back to the size of our buildings. Both of our middle schools are not gigantic. And we actually did try this a number of years ago, having an honors track, I guess you could call it, or an honors group at a non-gifted honors group at both middle schools. And it worked. It fit, but it made chaos with scheduling. And when it came time to actually build the schedule or if things needed to change during the school year, it was near impossible to schedule students, especially students that moved into the district during the school year.
Well, then maybe taking it one piece at a time is just piggybacking off of our equity report and our consultant's recommendations, and let's just look at math first.
my comment was more around there are students that would excel in a program like the Gifted Humanities, but because they don't have that piece of paper, they don't get to experience that. And it could make a difference for those students. And just because they struggle in math, we have students that do really well in one or the other, but it doesn't cross both sides of their brain. That doesn't mean they aren't gifted in that area. That just means they don't get that because they don't have that piece of paper. I shouldn't say they don't get that. They don't have that
They don't have that
specific
opportunity.
program
Right.
because they don't have that piece of paper. And I still don't feel that that's fair to those who could do well in it.
But then
Just my opinion.
I happen to agree with you, but I think having honors ELA addresses that. Now, Mr. Ferraro is saying that's a scheduling problem.
But that's also
But-
different than the humanities program. Humanities and ELA are
Oh.
different.
I would listen. You know who's talking. I would give everyone humanities. I love it. I would put social studies and ELA together. I mean, we don't want to sit here and hear what I want to do, but I happen to agree with you.
I'm getting scary vibes of the 80s when they tracked us. Very scary. We differentiate, hopefully. Tracking is, is an equity issue.
No one's suggesting tracking because that's a dirty word. Well, we do it in high school, don't we? And our equity consultants basically just recommended it. So maybe,
Well,
I don't
they
know.
recommended a lot of things, but I'm here to tell you, when they met with the administration, we brought some things to their attention that were sorely missing from their report. And that's all I'll say on that subject.
Well,
It's just
don't know.
a recommendation. I don't know that we blindly take every step they had.
No, I'm
They
not
had some
suggesting
very
that.
good things, but they agreed, and I'm not sure if they caught up with the diversity committee, but they did agree that they missed some things that they didn't review that probably they should have, so.
Maybe, but I think the concept of giving more children access to higher level math is a good thing.
Okay, those were your two questions. She only said two, so I'm stopping the meeting.
Because my last one can't happen until the board has voted on an organizational chart, because I was curious how this committee is the composition of this committee going to change?
We too are very curious.
Well, I will save that question.
All right. Madam Chair, we would like to adjourn.